In this lesson, we are solving algebraic equations. In other words, we are finding the unknown or the input variable. So how do we solve equations using the additive and multiplicative inverses? How can we solve this equation? It's not so easy to use a flow diagram, is it? Because there are x's on both sides of the equal sign. So let's just review. What is the multiplicative property of 1? Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, 100 times 1 is 100, and 10x times 1 is 10x. So the product of any number and 1 is that number? Yes, Draco times 1 is Draco. Cute. What is the additive property of 0? Negative 4 plus 0 is negative 4. 100 plus 0 is 100. 10x plus 0 is 10x. So the sum of any number and 0 is that number? Yes, Draco plus 0 is Draco. Cute. So how can we use additive inverses? A positive 2 and a negative 2 are additive inverses of each other. In other words, if I've got positive 2 and I plus a negative 2, the answer is 0. 2 minus 2 is also 0 because it's the same as 2 plus a negative 2. And negative 10x plus 10x is 0. How is this useful? Look at this huge expression. Now let's use the commutative property and find all the additive inverses and then first calculate them. So 2x negative 2x is 0. 4x negative 4x squared is 0. Negative 3y positive 3y, 0. So this is cool. The answer is just 0. It saves so much time if you can see the additive inverses. So additive inverses are the same distance from 0? Yes. What are multiplicative inverses? So 3 and a third are multiplicative inverses of each other, which means 3 times a third is 1. And you know 3 times a third is 1. Therefore, negative 3 times a negative a third is also 1. Note the signs stay the same, but it's only the numerator and the denominator that swap. So therefore, x times 1 over x is 1. And negative 2 thirds times negative 3 halves will be 1. So when we multiply a number and its multiplicative inverse, we always get 1. Let's look at this expression. The 2x and the 2x will be 1. Negative 3y times 3y, negative 1 over 3y times 3y will be negative 1. And the 4x squared and the 4x squared cancel, and that will give us 1. So our answer is a super cool negative 1. But how can this help us to solve equations? Let's explore on this free site. Math is fun. So our equation is like a scale. The left side must always be equal to the right side. Our job is to find the mass of 1x. How heavy is 1x? So we have to isolate the x's. So yes, let's use additive and multiplicative inverses to help us. So I'm looking and I see that there are 3 x's, the least amount of x's. So I think a good strategy would be to subtract those x's from both sides. So I'm subtracting 3x from both sides. Remember, the additive inverse of 3x is negative 3x. Now my x is almost alone. So what is the additive inverse of positive 1? Negative 1. As long as I do it on both sides. And voila, we've solved for x. X has got a weight or a mass of 3. Let's say each of these, this is kilogram, 3 kilograms. So how can all these properties help us to solve equations? X minus 3 is 7. First, make sure that the expressions on the left and the right side are simplified. Then locate the x. Find the additive inverse of negative 3. That's positive 3. Why? Because we want 0. We want x alone. So we add 3 to both sides. Then we simplify. The left-hand side is 10x and the right-hand side is 10. And we've isolated the x. We found the value of x. Always remember to test by using substitution. So 10 minus 3 is 7, and we know we've solved this equation. We found the value of x. The expressions left and right are simplified. So what is the additive inverse of positive 5? It's negative 5. So we have to subtract 5 from both sides. Let's simplify. The left-hand side is then just x, and the right-hand side is 2. If we test and we substitute 2 for x, we realize that our equation is solved since we have found the value for x. So here we have an equation, 2x is 14. Note, the expressions are simplified, and the 2x is just one term. It's not 2 plus x, so we cannot use additive inverses. Yeah, we have to use multiplicative inverses. So what is the multiplicative inverse of 2? It would be a half. So we can times both sides by a half, or we can divide by 2, because to multiply by a half is the same as to divide by 2. So we divide both sides by 2, and then we simplify. That will give us x is equal to 7. Let's test that. 2 times 7 is 14. So we have solved the equation, we found the value of x. Again, we've got one term on the left side. So we cannot use additive inverses, we have to use multiplicative inverses. So what is the multiplicative inverse of a third? It would be 3. So we're going to times it by 3 on both sides. If we do that, then we can isolate the x, and x will be 12. Let's test. Is 12 divided by 3 4? Yes, so we solved the equation, we found the value of x. Example 5. Now we've got two terms on the left side, which are simplified. First, get rid of the one term. So the plus 4's additive inverse is negative 4. So we subtract 4 from both sides. Now we've got only 2x on the left side, and we've got 8 on the right side. On the left side, we've got one term. So for one term, we have to use the multiplicative inverse of 2, which is a half. So we can multiply by a half, or we can divide by 2. And 2 is the coefficient of x. If we divide by 2, the 2's cancel, it gives us 1, and then x is equal to 4. Remember to test the solution. Let us summarize. The additive and multiplicative inverses help us to isolate the unknown value or the input value. So then it's easier to solve equations. Yes, and to solve real-life problems. And look how strong you are getting, Drake. Wow.